but you know,
Hi, I'm Mike Muscolo. This is Creating Common Ground, and this is The Atheist and the Nun. I am the atheist.
I am the nun.
And again, this is Creating Common Ground. I'm Mike Muscolo. I am a professor of psychology at Merrimack College and the director of Creating Common Ground. And you, Sister Jean, are?
I'm a sister of St. Joseph, and I am currently teaching at Boston College. I teach theology, and that's about it.
What
I'm
is
all about God.
You're all about God. I'm not.
I know that, and that's a problem.
It's a problem for you, is it? I didn't know that. Your being about God wasn't a problem for me. We'll have to figure it out.
Absolutely, and that's why we have to find some common ground.
What's the Sisters of Saint Catherine? Did you say
St. Joseph.
Joseph? Saint Joseph. What is that?
We are women religious that embrace the charism of unity and reconciliation, unity and diversity, love of God and love of neighbor without distinction. So therefore, Michael, I even love you as an atheist because I love everyone.
Glad you're loving me as an atheist. You've already converted it. I can see that. I can see that immediately. And I love you just because you're a person that is lovable, that I know. And
Oh,
so
thank
there
you.
you go. I don't need a reason, you understand. Okay. So I think the best place to start is to talk about our God concepts
Sure.
and the like. And you can start or I can start, but I think you should start. And I've always been very curious about what people believe in when they believe in God, what that means to them. And so I guess that's my first question is, assuming you believe in God, you said you did, um, what is it that you think of when you think of God? What is God to you? And then why do you believe in God?
Well, see, first of all, as soon as you use the word God, you're limiting this all-powerful, beyond our imagination mystery.
Mhm.
And I think that that's part of the problem that we face today in the 21st century is that we don't do well with mystery. We want to figure everything out. You ask someone something and they don't know something, and immediately the phone comes out and they Google it because everything has to be figured out. But there does come a point where you have reason, you can get to reason to a certain place, and then you're like, ew, you know, there's only so far you can go. And then there are some things that are you just can't figure out with reason. And that's where the concept of faith comes in, the concept of God comes in. When I teach at BC, I always say to my students, they come in, some of them just like this, they haven't had much experience with God language, which theology is just God talk. And they're a little nervous. And I'm not trying to convert anyone. You have to realize, to be an educated human being, that all of Western civilization has been based on Christianity. So you have to have some understanding of it. And then you can start to understand where some of the issues come from. And let's face it, some of the biggest problems facing us in the world is because we don't understand each other's belief system. And we put labels on people, and that's why, like even us being the atheist and the nun, we're putting labels on each other. And how do we move beyond the labels to see, as you said at the beginning, that you're a really good person, and I like talking to you, I like hanging around with you. The same thing here. And I think that this mystery of love that we call God, and even love is, we say love, I love, Honey Nut Cheerios, or I love ice cream, and I also loved my parents, and I love you, and like it's just such a word that we use so tritely, and the mystery of love is just so much bigger than that. I always say to the students, I'm going on and on here, but have you ever been to a wedding, or you saw someone going out with someone, you're like, oh my God, like, I don't know how. That's a mystery. What is it that attracts someone so deeply to another human being? even the mystery of our personalities and why some people are really, I mean, and I think the world is imbued with this mystery. And that mystery is love, and that mystery is God. And the beautiful thing about Christianity is that God's not some, man in the sky they're looking down to, but God took on flesh in Jesus. That's big. That's a game
What
changer.
does that mean? Took our flesh in Jesus. What does that mean?
Became human. God chose to leave all of the things that we could associate with godliness to become a human being, to be born, to be walking with us. And sometimes, like I'll say to students, they want a Santa Claus God. And I think that's part of the reason why we do. We want a God that we can, why isn't there a God? Because I've asked God to fix some things and they're not fixed. Yeah. And it's bigger than that. And can you be open to the mystery? I forget, John Henry Newman once said, you can have, I'm looking at it right here, that, you can have 1,000, I'm trying to find it, to I believe, help my unbelief. But he also said, he didn't say that, but that's what we say. But, so often that it's okay to have questions. It's okay to have doubts. That doesn't make you a bad Catholic or Christian or mean that you don't believe in God. It just means that you have questions and doubts. That's humanity. That's owning our humanity. Anyhow, I think part of it is we tend to think of all of these things as a zero-sum game, and there's so much more gray area in between.
So immediately when you were talking, I'm looking for common ground types of things. And I saw an immediate common ground. There's going to be a non-common ground in a second that I want to play with. But the common ground, you immediately started to say, well, God isn't a guy in the sky. It's something bigger. It's a larger something. It's a mystery. You began to talk about the mystery of existence. Awe, I would imagine that you would come to mind. And the second you say that, I can't disagree. I'm resonating entirely. The idea that this is awesome. I wake up every day and I say, what is this thing called consciousness? I wake up every day and I say, how did we get here? What is this all about? And I have answers, the standard answers that, make a lot of sense to me. Evolution makes a great deal of sense to me, even though I don't know how evolution happens. I actually don't think that even our best evolutionary scientists don't know how it happens. I believe it does. I believe it happens through natural selection. I think it's more complex than any of us know about. I think it's epigenetic, for example. But nonetheless, it's still awesome. It may be a little less mysterious, I think, than you might think it might be, but it is nonetheless mysterious. And so I can certainly embrace mystery. And I can certainly embrace awe. I can certainly embrace the mystery of love. I think it's a remarkable mystery. Why are we attracted to each other in the various ways that we're attracted to each other? What does it mean to love? And how is it that love can bring us together? All of those things are great things. So I'm with you. Where I begin to have questions is, you talked about a larger, awesome mystery, but then you started to talk, and you said that God isn't an agent in the sky, but then you did say that that there is a God and God took human flesh. Now it seems to me that the second one does that. One's beginning to personify God. So is that a metaphor? Is that a way of speaking? Is that a way to connect to the mystery that we don't know about? Or is it more literal? You're beginning to pin down the mystery. And again, you said you're doing it with faith, but I don't have any reason to believe in that particular explanation of that which is awesome. So I guess what I'm asking to you is, how do you make the connection from awe to God? especially in this kind of personified way, with all the content that you bring to it as a Catholic?
Well, we as Catholics, well, Christians actually, all Christians believe that this concept that we call God, this concept of love that brought us into existence, became a human being and walked the earth. Call him Christ, Jesus. And so we will say, and there's some beautiful songs written, that Christ has no body now but yours. And that sort of informs, like we were talking before we got into this Zoom recording, we were talking for a brief minute about Catholic social teaching. And, there are 7 or 8 principles, and, when you get into the details, sometimes we might disagree on some of the details of how it's lived out, but human dignity. I mean, come on, you got to give it that everyone should be treated with dignity just because they're humans. All right. And we will say that that's because we're made in the image and likeness of God. All right. So we inform it with the faith, but there's still this sense that all human beings should be treated with dignity. We all get like abhorred when we see humanity's cruelty to humanity, because we believe that there's a certain amount of dignity in people. And we are supposed to be our brother and sister's keeper. All right. We're supposed to watch out for each other. And we do. Don't we all get a little sort of can't believe that anyone, when we hear things that happen that are so horrific, that anyone would not protect and help out and try to, as a global society, we need to care about each other. There's a song that some of the students introduced me to, called "We All Bleed the Same," and it's so true. I mean, we're all on this journey together. So we may put, as Christians, we may put the Christ words on it, but as I will say all the time, the Catholic social teaching principles, taking care of the earth. Hello. I mean, we're talking about it every day, what are we doing? Climate control. I mean, these are all things that we're called to be good humans. It gets even further informed. It gets even further, becomes from us that claim Christianity. It's also a mandate. It's a command of being part of the gospel. It's a command of following this Jesus. All right. This God that took on flesh and walked with us. All right. And that I need to, St. Augustine says that, God became human so that we might become divine. All right. So that we can start to move towards trying to be divine and, to really care about each other. And, I was talking to a student last night who's working in a homeless clinic. He's volunteering actually for a Sister of St. Joseph that I know in Newark. And I talked to him last night because it was his first day, and he wants to become a doctor. He's a BC student. And to hear this young man, and I don't know where he is on the God question, I just don't know, but to hear him talking about how beautifully this Sister Charlene cares for each person coming in there. And, it's because she's a nurse, it's not only, taking care of their medical needs, but he says she'll make sure they have a bus ticket, or that they'll have, there's a food pantry, and there's he was blown away. And that's really what it means. That pushes us to a whole new level. The God question pushes us to a whole new level to embodying Christ. And so what he was sharing with me last night, for me in faith language, would be, he saw Jesus in action in this sister that was doing so much for so many that have so little. Mm-hmm. You might see it and you'd say, this woman is doing so much for so many, and she is just a good human being. All right. I take it a step.
Go in the middle. I can say that that she invokes the image of Jesus in all of his goodness, if you will, and identifies with that. And he provides her with a moral and even spiritual guide to live her life, and a set of commandments, a set of obligations, what have you. That all I can appreciate that. I can understand that.
And Mike, just because like you can only get as far as when we talk about common ground as appreciating and understanding, all right, that doesn't take anything away from where I say, oh my gosh, she is such a faith-filled follower of this Jesus that and she is, I mean, I can see things that Jesus taught us about at work in her. I mean, but what you're saying, I mean, there's a middle ground here that we're both coming to. It's not the same, but it's a place where, we can both stand in appreciation for what this woman is doing. And I think that when we talk about common ground, isn't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to find a place where we both can stand in appreciation
Right.
for
I
what
guess
the
the
other
question
brings
then
to the table.
becomes, what grounds the appreciation, and does it matter? What is it that if we can both agree that humans have dignity, for example,
Right.
or if we can both agree that we should be taking care of each other, or you made a claim before, it seems rather innocuous. You said in our global world we should be taking care of each other. Okay, well, that's actually a little bit harder. There are those who would argue that that's unreasonable, or that's not possible. That in a global world, we can't invoke an ethos of care for all people. That's where the doctrine, or the ethos of rights comes in. We need an ethos of rights because we can't be in relationship with everybody all at once. And so I actually believe that we should adopt an ethos of care in some way for everybody in the world, but some may disagree with that. My point is this: what grounds whether or not our moral judgments? What is it that grounds whether or not we're going to accept an ethos of care, an ethos of rights, an ethos of dignity, for example? Is it do we act that way because Jesus did? Do we act that way because God says that we're supposed to do it? Or do we act, or is there something else? For me, I believe that moral principles come from our relatings, and nothing else really. Our relatings in this world, so that you are hungry and you are eating a piece of bread, and I'm hungry and I take the bread from your mouth, and you cry, you become angry, and now we have a problem. We have a problem that we have to deal with your feelings of anger and your feelings of pain, and my feelings of anger, your suffering, and now we have a problem. Now we have to come up with rules. We have to come up with ways of relating. What do we do when somebody takes the food out of somebody else's mouth? What do we do when we have people who are in pain? And I believe that it is in those modes of relating, those ways of being with each other, without a deity, I don't believe morality comes from God or from nature. I don't think it comes from a rational mind. I don't think it comes from rational thought, for example. I think it comes from one person and group of persons relating as a whole person to another person or group of persons. And then evaluative issues necessarily arise in how we treat each other. And so we can only ground our moral judgments in our shared ways of being, our intersubjectivity, our shared pains, that sort of thing. So that's where I go. Some might say that's a very weak way of going. It doesn't provide you with much direction. My problem is that God may provide you with too strong a direction, and without sufficient grounding, because I don't have any evidence or any way to break into to a deity that I cannot experience.
See, and that's the difference. Like I experience that deity every day in the way people and I interact, and how we are with each other. I have to say it's interesting, when you talk about people say about the whole global picture. It's been my contention for a while that we as a world community we use the word global, but we do not have an inkling of what that word means.
Tell me more.
Whatever we do anywhere affects people somewhere else.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, this is my own pet peeve. I think, you know, the internet, look at, we're able to do this now. Well, the internet was amazing during COVID. There's so many good things that have come with social media and being able to connect with people and everything else. But it's also given us so much information so quickly that it's overwhelming. So one day, you know, you read about some horrible thing and you're not even able to rally people to handle that or start to talk about it or try to bring a compassionate response. And then, you know, you hear about something else because we're so connected. So the connection is great. How we sort of like, how we kind of can hold it all is something that I continue to not have an answer for.
What's the all that you want to hold?
Hmm?
What is the all you want to hold? What do you mean by that? Hold it all.
Well, I mean, you know, you talk about what's going on the border in our country. You talk about Ukraine. You talk, I mean,
I see. To understand it all, to appreciate it all, to understand it all, to grasp it all. I see.
It's just so much.
We're
And
going to have that problem no matter what we do. I'm with you on the idea that we don't know what global means. I'm with you with the idea that the internet is a wonderful, and all of our technologies are wonderful tools that bring us wonderful things. Like any tool, of course, it's only as good as its use. It's a tool. It's in some sense morally neutral in some sense. And so it depends on how we use it. I feel that the problem comes from access to you said use the word information. We have an awful lot of information. We have an awful lot of information. What we don't have is wisdom. What we don't have are the shared values that put us in some way in charge of the technology. The technology regulates us rather than we regulate it. And, you know, that's part of what it means to be a culture, as you know. Technology drives culture. From the very first technologies, technology drives culture. And the perennial problem is, how do we as a human species, how do we as people, in my opinion, enter into relationship with each other and create shared values that identify what's important, what's not important, what's better, what's worse, so that we can use this technology to our advantage and not let it use us. That's the slightly different slant that I would take to address what you're saying. I think
it's
we need
interesting.
information plus.
It's interesting, you know, when you're talking about particularly the Catholic Church and some of the more contentious issues, people are, well, you know, it needs to get with the times or whatever. And Rome is very slow. Always has been. They joke about it being Rome Eterna because it goes so slowly. And I think part of it, I maybe in my old age here, I'm getting a better respect for the fact that we sometimes way too quickly just run with the latest and the greatest.
Yep.
And we don't step back and think about unintended consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a good friend of mine used to always say, actions have consequences. And there's so many unintended consequences to different things that are coming. You know, we had a class discussion just recently about AI. And it's not just about like them getting their essay written on AI. That's not it. It's that there's so much information out there that we don't even know that's being traced on us, and the anxiety and the mental illness that it's causing for so many people. And we need to step back and sort of say, for the sake, that's always it too, for the sake of the whole, can I say that maybe I will have to let go of something? That's hard. When I think of like, when you think of like some of the social media things and the anxiety and the problems that it's causing and the bullying and all the other stuff that's causing for young people, we know that, right? We see it all the time. Are we ready to step back and say, how much is too much?
I mean, like, don't use the internet.
And
Cut
see,
down
like,
on, or not use social media, cut down on it. Not, is that what you're talking about? Things like that?
but it's, I don't think it can just be subjective. I think we need to have conversations about it,
Yeah, of course, conversations. Yeah.
because we need to find that common ground about how should we handle this.
Let's go to what you said a few minutes ago when you talked about how Rome goes slowly, and that you were making an argument for slowness, a kind of a conservatism in moving forward, a caution in moving forward, or when you have novel technologies, that we're moving too quickly. Maybe we should slow down. Interesting point. So now you've got AI gurus coming out, and they sign a petition that says, "Hey, slow down for 6 months. Don't do anything for the next 6 months. Let's reflect upon how we're going to use this technology." So there you've got some slow Romans for you, trying to slow things down a little bit. Here's the problem: who is the we that is not keeping up with the technology? Let's say we slow down. Okay, so we slow down. Somebody else is going to not slow down.
Right.
Okay? And so, just like nuclear war or what have you, you have this race because we're afraid. We're afraid, and even if we talk with the other and we assuage the other's fears, and they agree, well, there's going to be somebody else who's not part of the equation,
Right.
and so there's no single we who can stop this thing. It's messy. It's very, very messy, and if we don't move forward, we run the danger of somebody else taking over for us. So it's as if we have no exit. There's no simple way out, either forward or backwards or laterally or the like. Insofar as the
Can I
internet,
interrupt you for
yeah,
a minute? I hear you on that, and I understand that, and you can make arguments for every single. And I'm not saying no. I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying. But that then again, these are very complex, and it can't be like, all right, we're gonna have a moratorium for 6 months. It's not that easy.
yeah.
These issues that we're talking about are not that easy. All right. It's not that easy. And everything is not that easy. There's so much complexity to it, but we have to be able to have conversations. We in this country right now, you know that as well as I do, we can't have conversations. We can't talk about things. It's zero-sum game. And I personally, I'm not that old, but I don't think I've ever seen our country as divided as we are right now. And it's anxiety producing to see how divided we are. We can't have conversations.
Part of the
So,
reason why we're doing this, right, to show that you believe in God, and I don't. I
right.
mean, I don't. I disbelieve. We have very different views about that. We have very different views about about the grounding of moral judgments. Nonetheless, in our conversations in the past, and as I hope that these continue, we find that we're able, if we try hard enough, to look away from the things that or at least bracket the things that we don't agree on, that we can create ways of agreeing. And I think that can happen. That can happen because we're pretty far apart on probably the most core thing in existence. You know what I'm saying? But that often doesn't seem to matter. That doesn't seem to get in our way. And I think that's good. I think that's part of the point.
And that's hopeful.
That's hopeful. That's very hopeful.
You know, my students in class, I'll tell you, I have never seen young people and I taught for a lot of years, and it's just, I think, where we're at. They are trying to, this whole idea of, whether there's a God or not, I think it's something that's becoming more and more important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to figure out, well, what does spirituality mean? And what does a relationship with the transcendent mean? And if nothing else, I walk with my students. Instead of doing office hours, I walk with them. What they need, what they say they see in me is someone that cares about them. And I'd like to think that even if we don't get to the ultimate for my life, which is a relationship with this God, that they know that there's someone that cares about them. Isn't that somewhere on the way there?
Well, I think I actually think it's much further along than you think it is, simply because I don't believe that there is the other thing. I actually think that what spirituality is and means, at least for me, is the capacity to identify with something beyond me, to identify with some experience, some sort of sharing of experience that is beyond me. And so if this young person is identifying with you, you have experience with her, that you have created this caring feeling, and she has a feeling that you care about her, and that she's identifies with you and appreciates that is, in my opinion, that is spirituality, at least with a small s. And the more you can create that way of relating, that shared way of identifying with a community, an experiential and valued community, that is, as far as I'm concerned, spirituality. So I think you're already doing it. I think you're already doing it. You don't need the guy upstairs in order to make it happen, because you're already making it happen. And I think that's really good.
Well, whether you call him the guy upstairs, I don't think it's that, but this,
yeah, I know, but I was being cheeky on purpose.
I know, but I'm just saying that I knew that I was going to call you on it. But it is that my experience of my own relationship with Jesus, which really is the animator of how I am. So that's hopefully, and they know that.
Right.
And I think that raises a.
Right. Whether God exists or not, in a sense, in my mind, doesn't matter with respect to what you just said. Because what you just said was that you have a relationship with a being, if you will, real or imagined, that animates you, that gives you life, that gives you inspiration, that it is through that relationship and in that relationship that you create yourself, and then bring that relationship to others in a spiritual relationship. And I think that that's what's important. In the, believe it or not, the Reagan administration, there was the Surgeon General, C. Everett Koop. And I like to tell this story because he was seen as a wonderful Surgeon General at the time, despite many people who didn't like the Reagan administration. And he was interviewed once, and people were talking about what a wonderful thing he was doing in his job. And he said, well, he was a Quaker. If I thought that I was doing this myself, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's my faith in God. And so, we can have faith in God. We can have faith in humanity. We can have faith in Sister Jean. We can have faith in our mother or father or any other figure that we have. It is through those relationships that we create who we are. And if we can bring those forward, that seems to be the path to spirituality. And at the center of that is value judgment, it seems to me, which.
I got bad news for you, Mike.
We're going to stop. What?
Oh, I got bad news for you before we stop.
What?
And that is that what you're saying is that relationship is at the heart of it all.
Yes.
And the Sisters of St. Joseph, what we say is that relationship is at the heart of all we are and all we do. And so, I don't know, you could be.
Can I join the sisters?
You might be able to join the Sisters of St. Joseph.
So fast, you have no idea.
All right, just so you know. I mean, like, you're right on the cusp. That's all I can say.
Oh, you did you should have stopped me there and said, no, whoa, whoa.
I don't
You
know.
don't
You're on the road.
So there's hope for me, eh?
Yeah.
And of course, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. And therefore, what you could say about me, I could say about you. You were right on the cusp of a lovely secular conception of what it means to be in relation to other people. So,
Well, I need to say that nice to hear that, but I couldn't do it. No, I couldn't. I mean, like
this
that
would be a good
relationship with
place.
Jesus is crucial for me.
This would be a good place to stop.
Oh yeah, of course, right? When I'm saying the relationship with Jesus is crucial, let's stop. I know we do have to stop, but I just wanted, I want to bring that to your
That's the place
attention.
to start. That's the place to start next time.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you, Nun.
Welcome, atheist.
Okay. I'm going to stop this now and